In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you how to make a fun notebook like this one. You can use whatever papers you have on hand, which makes it a super easy book or notebook to make. I'm also using my paste paper for the covers, and if you haven't made any paste paper and you would like to learn how, click on the link in the description below and you can make your own, or you can use whatever kinds of paper you already have on hand. I'm also going to share with you how to create this fun paper closure, and I'll be using this chain stitch to bind this notebook. So to start, gather up the papers that you'd like to use for the inside of the notebook. I'm using some packing paper, and I've saved a couple of paper bags that were from some takeout meals that we got recently. And I'm going to cut the end off, the bottom end off, so that when I fold it, each end will have a little pocket. And I'm going to do the same thing to this one. So I want all of my pages to be about the same size, so this is where I'm just measuring to see what size I should end up making my pages so that they're all relatively the same. So I'm cutting my packing paper down just a little bit so that it's about the same size or the same height as those packing papers. I'm going to pause here just to let you know that I'm actually going to be giving away this notebook at the end, so stick around to see how you can enter to win. I'm also using this paper that was saved from some larger security envelopes. I'm going to figure out what would make sense for the size of it, and I'm going to trim it down. If you are using a variety of different kinds of papers, this would be a good time to get them situated in the order that you would like them to be in. This is a one signature book, which means I'm going to fold it just once into one signature, so it's one grouping of paper folded once. And since I have like 3 different kinds of papers that I'm working with, I'm just kind of just evenly distributing them throughout my signature so that not all of the same kind of paper is next to each other. So I'm doing a packing paper, security envelope paper, a paper bag, and then kind of repeating that. If you give it a little tap on the table and make sure they're all nice and even, fold it in half. If you have a bone folder, that would be really helpful. If you did make some paste paper and you were like me, you probably made more than one piece of paste paper, because when you make one, it's pretty likely that you made more than one because that's just what you do when you make paste paper. Go ahead and measure the length or height of your signature and cut your cover paper just a touch larger than that, which I just did here. I am leaving my cover paper pretty long so that I can create that flap like I showed at the beginning of the video. Next, go ahead and grab a ruler and an awl and something to punch into, like this book board that I use. I'm going to open up my signature and lay it out on my punching board, and either use your ruler or your guide to punch some holes along the fold. I'm going to punch 5 holes along the fold about a ½ inch apart. I'm using waxed linen thread to bind up my notebook. I just restocked my colors, so I'm going to choose which one I'd like to use, which is going to be this yellow-green here. And I'm going to measure about 3 lengths of thread, and I'm going to thread my needle. I have a tutorial on how to do the chain stitch which I will link below, but here is just a quick version of how to do the chain stitch. Basically, you are taking your needle from the inside, going through the first hole and back into the second hole, and then creating a knot. Then you're going through the third hole from the inside, looping around that first stitch and going back through the third hole. Then you're going to go through the fourth hole from the inside and then pull through, loop through that last stitch, and then go back through that fourth hole. And then repeat along the fold until you get to the end. Go ahead and tie a knot at the end, and what I like to do is I like to slip my needle right under the second to last stitch, and then I trim it there, and then I trim the top as well. And it should look something like this. Next, I'm going to decide how long I want my wrap to be. You can use any sort of string, rope, thread. I'm using my waxed linen thread, and I'm deciding how long I want it to be depending on how many times I want to wrap around my notebook, and then I'm going to give it a trim. I'm deciding to make my flap a little bit fancier by cutting it a rounded edge and then just making sure it all lines up, and then I'm going to think about how I want to make that paper closure, which took me a second to figure out. So yours obviously could look different than mine, but this is just how I did mine. I'm taking a little bit of that leftover paper bag, brown paper, and I'm cutting it and folding it to create a little bit of structure because I'll be sewing it on. So I want a little bit to be on the outside and a little bit to be on the inside. And then I thought I'd create another layer of interest with a little bit of another kind of my paste paper that I have. So once again, I'm rounding off the edges just to make it a little bit fancier. I'm going to trim that brown paper to be a little bit larger than that paste paper. They're both folded in half. And then I'm slipping it onto the flap part. I'm using that waxed linen thread, and I'm going to stitch it onto that paper flap. So I'm going to put basically 3 holes into attaching this little piece here. So I'm starting from the inside. I'm going to bring my needle through to the outside. I'm going to tie a knot at the end. I'm going to tie a double knot just so it's big enough so it doesn't pull through. Next, I'll be continuing this running stitch by putting my needle back through towards the inside and then back out towards the outside. For the other part of my paper closure, I'm going to be doing basically the same thing, folding my brown paper in half, cutting a little rounded edge, and then finding some extra paste paper to cut another smaller version of that shape. I'm lining it up to see where I want it to be located, and then I'm taking my needle with a new piece of thread, and I'm starting from the inside, pulling it towards the outside, and I'm not going to knot this thread quite yet. Now I'm going to take my needle from the outside, put it back through that little piece, through the cover, and back onto the inside. At this point, I took my needle off the thread, and now I'm tying a double knot. The very last thing that I wanted to do was cover up the knot on the inside, so I took one last piece of paste paper and I cut it down to size, added a little bit of glue from a glue stick, and just pasted it right on top. And we made it to the giveaway part. This video is special because I'm going to be giving away this notebook as well. Here is how you can enter to win this notebook. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up and click subscribe if you are not subscribed to my channel yet. And leave a comment below with what you would use this notebook for. I will choose a random winner and I will announce who the winner is in my next video. Thanks for watching.